Okay, so to do the provisional cast on, you're going to need your main needles and your main yarn. I'm using Briggs & Little Heritage, a crochet hook, similar size to your needle, and some waste yarn. So this can be any scrap yarn as long as it's smooth. If it's fuzzy, you'll have a hard time unpicking these stitches later. So I'm actually using the same type of yarn, just in a contrasting color, just to help see the different stitches. So to start, we're going to get a bit of our waste yarn and start with a simple slip knot. And we're actually going to put it right on the crochet hook. So pull it tight, but of course, not too tight, not too loose. So take your main needles and put your working yarn underneath the needle. And yarn over your hook and pull a loop through the loop that's on your hook. Bring your yarn around to the back of the main needle and repeat. So yarn over your hook, scoop that yarn through the loop, and that's 2 stitches on. So you only ever have 1 loop on your crochet hook. Put the yarn to the back, yarn over, pull through. So I'm working on the small size of the hauberk, so I will be doing 8 stitches. And this is a nice easy way to get a set of live stitches when we're done. 2, 4, 6, 7, and 8. So when you have the number of stitches required by your pattern, then yarn over and chain a few stitches. Yarn over, pull through. I'm just going to do 3. And I don't have my snips with me here, so I'm just going to break that yarn and pull that through the last loop to secure it. So what you should be left with is your stitches on your main needle and a little chained tail on one end. So don't turn your needles. We're just going to attach our main yarn, leave a little tail, and knit your first row of stitches just as you normally would. Okay, so when you're ready to undo these stitches so that you have your live stitches, you'll start here, pull the tail, so you can see your loop is open there, and if you were to pull on that, your stitches should all come undone. Of course, you would have more rows here. They would all just easily come off and you would be left with your live stitches on the needle. Okay, so we're ready to work section 3, joining the pieces. I've got my right front shoulder piece and my left front shoulder piece on a holder. And I'm doing size small, so I've worked across row 23 of the chart. And I have 1 stitch remaining. So the row of the chart will be different for each size, but every size should have 1 stitch left. That's your selvage stitch. So I'm going to place a marker there and then just knit that next stitch. Okay, so now we're going to cast on the stitches for the wide cable, so it's the same for every size. And it's up to you how you want to cast on the stitches. I personally don't love doing a cable cast on or a knit cast on. I find it's too tight, and because we will be picking up stitches eventually for the neckline ribbing, we want a nice easy way to pick those up, and I find the backwards loop method is best. So again, it's up to you. If you do the backwards loop method, you do want to make sure your stitches are pretty snug on there. So I usually do them nice and tight. We don't want them too loosey-goosey. So we're all casting on 21 stitches. Two, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 21, 22. So you should have 22 stitches now, including that 1 selvage stitch from the right front shoulder. Now we will be working across our left front shoulder stitches. I like these cord stitch holders because it makes it really easy. Now, of course, you want to make sure both right sides are facing out. So to use these, I just pop that on my needle. I'll try and get some sets of these cords up in my Etsy shop. They're really handy. This is a real short one, but I use all sizes, all lengths. Okay, so we have our stitches for the left there. Okay, that's enough. And we're going to knit that first selvage stitch and place your marker, and now you have 23 stitches in the middle for your wide cable, and then you can work across your left front stitches according to the row on your chart. And then you're ready to continue with the body stitches to the armpits, and we're all set. Okay, so at this point you've completed your chest stitches, you've cast on for your underarms, and you've completed the body of your hauberk. And we're about to start our short rows to round out the hem. So again, I'm doing the size small, so I worked across my next row to the last 3 stitches. We're going to turn our work, so the wrong side is facing in this case, and we're going to work our first German short row. This is my preferred method. It's so simple and easy. But if you prefer wrap and turn, you can absolutely substitute the wrap and turn method or whatever your preferred short row method is. I just find the German method so easy. So you have your working yarn in front. You're going to slip the next stitch purlwise to your right needle, and all you're going to do is pull quite firmly on your working yarn, and you can see your stitch, your single stitch will kind of double, and it looks like 2 little legs there instead of 1. So keep your tension nice and firm on that, and you'll just work your next stitch as you normally would. My next stitch is a knit stitch, so I would just knit that. If it was a purl stitch, you'll want to, of course, make sure to bring your working yarn to the front, and then you would work your purl stitch. So I'm just going to work a few stitches. So you would work your wrong side to the last remaining stitches. For the larger sizes, it would be 5. So then when you're coming back across and you encounter your doubled stitches, let's just pretend I did that. They're quite obvious. You'll see there's a little bump there, and there's the 2 legs. So my next stitch is a normal purl stitch, and because my next stitch in the sequence would be a purl, I'm going to purl those 2 legs together. If it was a knit stitch, you would knit the 2 stitches together. And then you can carry on. Okay, so I've worked my wrong side short row as I did for the other side, and I've worked back across the right side. But I just wanted to show you, it's up to your personal taste, but I prefer to always cross my cables as much as possible when decreasing or doing necklines, things like that. So I'm working to 2 stitches before the last short row. So you can see the last doubled stitch is here, followed by a purl stitch, and then I've got a knit stitch, which is part of my 4-stitch cable. I'm also ready to twist these stitches. So what I'm going to do is do the twist, work the first 3 stitches of this cable. Actually, sorry, yes, 3 stitches. So that leaves 1, but that's 2 stitches before the previous doubled stitch. So now I'm going to turn, double that stitch by pulling it nice and tight. My next stitch is a purl stitch. So I'm bringing my yarn to the front, but I'm keeping that tension on the doubled stitch, and just carry on. So you can see there's 1 doubled stitch there, followed by 2 regular stitches, followed by another doubled stitch. For the larger sizes, it'll be 3 in between. Okay, so now I'm going to walk you through how to do the 3-needle bind off to join the shoulders. You can use another method like grafting if you prefer, but I find that the 3-needle bind off gives a nice firm bit of structure for the shoulders. So first what we're going to do is unpick our provisional cast on. So I'm starting with the chain end and I'm just pulling out that first tail. Getting my double pointed needle ready, and I am undoing that stitch by stitch. Now I kind of dropped one there. Pick up that first one. Anyway, as you pull on your crochet waste yarn, each stitch should come undone just nice and easily. And you can either insert your needle and then undo it. This yarn is pretty rustic. It holds its shape pretty well, so I'm not too worried about dropping stitches. Get that last one on there. And then just double check that you've got your 8 stitches for small or whatever size you're doing. Okay, so do that for both. Okay, so I have my 2 shoulder pieces ready to go on the double pointed needles. Now as you can see, I have my right side, my cabled side facing out, and on the back is the reverse stockinette stitch. But to work the 3-needle bind off, we actually want to flip those. We're going to work it from the wrong side. So really make sure that the wrong side of the back is facing out, so that's the knit side of the fabric, and the wrong side of the cables are facing out. So that one should be pretty obvious. Now you should have a nice long tail to work your bind off with. For some reason I did not do that. So if you're like me, it's not a big deal. Sorry, I'm just grabbing my yarn. Just attach a new piece of yarn. You'll just have a couple more tails to weave in. All right, so I'm in position. Got 8 stitches on each needle. Of course, if you're doing a different size, you'll have a different number, but it's very easy to do. So we're working with 3 double pointed needles. I'm going to knit 1 from the front and 1 from the back needle together. So I'll have 1 stitch left on my right needle. Repeat that. So 1 from the front, 1 from the back, knit them together. Now you have 2 stitches on your right needle, and just use one of the, I use the back tip from the back needle and flip that first stitch over top. Okay, so we're going to repeat the first step, knit front and back together and pass over. So continue doing that to the end until you have 1 stitch left, and you can just pull your tail through. You don't need to adjust your tension, just do, you know, a pretty normal tension. Definitely don't work it too loose. The whole point is to have a nice structure on top of the shoulders so that your pieces don't sag over time. I love grafting, but in this case. And there we are, we have 1 stitch left. Break my yarn. And pull the tail through. Let's have a look. So when you flip it over, there's definitely a seam. So if you don't like that look, then maybe you want to try grafting your stitches. I mean, it's not a really heavy garment, so you should be fine. But otherwise, we should be ready to work the neckline. Okay, so we're ready to pick up for the neckline. So I've got my 4.5 millimeter 24-inch needle, and we're going to start picking up across the back. So I'm starting at the right shoulder seam. So attach your main yarn. Make sure that your right side is facing out, so it should be the cabled side. You'll have to flip it from when you did your 3-needle bind off. And one of my biggest pieces of advice for picking up stitches anytime is to make sure you go through, I think a lot of people want to pick up just this edge stitch, and you want to really go under 2 stitches, or 2 strands, I should say. And you will get a bit more of a thicker seam on the inside, but you'll have such a nice look on the outside. It'll look really tidy. So there is quite a big difference. So I'm going down the back shoulder here and basically picking up 3 stitches and then skip the next row. I know sometimes it's kind of hard to see where you're picking up, and so I'm doing size small, so it is a fairly short. Now you can see there's quite a hole. If you want to go ahead and pick up just an extra strand, I think that looks a lot neater. There will be some awkward spots, and my best advice is whatever looks best from here is what you should go with. So I see there's a bit of an extra where we increased there, an extra strand. So I'm going to go under that one because to me this looks a lot tidier. So just carry on according to the instructions, and I will come back again when we do the front cabled neckline, because that can get a little bit chaotic. Okay, so I've worked my way around the back, down the front left shoulder, and now we're getting into cable territory. So again, if you see any holes, you may want to reach below and grab an extra strand on that part. We're still doing 3 stitches picked up for every 4 rows from the main fabric. So again, there is a little hole here. If I were to pick up the 2 strands like I normally would, even after we work the rib, you will have a little bit of a hole there. Personally, I can't live with that. I mean, it's not going to let in any drafts or anything, but so I'm going to pick up an extra row below there. But again, you know, there's no strict rules. So if you think it looks tidier by doing it a different way, then go for it. Whatever looks best on the right side of the fabric. So you can see here, it's nice and tidy. Once we start adding the ribbing, it's going to look really nice. Of course, there's a bit of leeway in this design because it's not, see, there's another big hole. But no problem, we're just going to close that right up. Anyway, this neckline is a little different from a traditional sweater because it's nice and wide and it's meant to sit flat on your chest. So it's a little more forgiving as far as the number of stitches you're picking up. Of course, we want it to look balanced. So I would even maybe make sure you have the same number of stitches on the right side and the left side. But if your count is off from what the pattern suggests, I wouldn't panic. Just if you're within, 8 to 10 stitches, make sure it's a multiple of 4 so you get your 2x2 ribbing. But otherwise, yeah, and then I'll come back when we do the wide cable. Okay, so we're ready to pick up across the wide cable. This will be done the same for all sizes. So what we're going to do, we want to suck it in a little bit, otherwise you can see it's flaring out here. Make sure you work the stitches in order. So you should have, starting with a knit 3, then you'd have your 2 purls, knit 3, 2 purls. So make sure you're not, for example, picking up these stitches first because this strand crosses. So we're going to pick up the same way as we have been doing. So make sure you're grabbing 2 strands. But what we're going to do for this one to help suck it in a bit is pick up 4 stitches for every 5 stitches from the wide cable. So my method is just to pick up 1, 2, 3 in your knit stitches and then 1 from your 2 purls. So that will decrease it a little bit. And a little trick when you're picking up, you can see your knit columns here, is actually to pick up between the columns, and you'll get almost a seamless look. Now, it's not so important because we'll be doing ribbing and it may look different anyway depending on how the knits and purls stack up, but just a little tip for, I think our instinct is to go right into the knit column, but you actually want to go in between and it will end up lining up perfectly. Otherwise the stitches look a little bit askew. And then for the 2 purl stitches, I'm literally just picking up right in the middle of them. Okay, so you can see it looks pretty tidy. Once we start our ribbing, it's going to look gorgeous. Okay, so now we're starting section 17, which is the back knit on trim. I like to start with this one because it doesn't have the buttonholes, so you can kind of get used to the rhythm and the pacing of it. You can see here, if I let go, it's gonna curl. But don't worry, once you block your garment, it will be perfectly flat. So I had a tricky time with this edge because you have to work a row here before picking up your 3 out of 4 rows down the side. So I just found this method of using the markers to be really simple. So I've already marked out every 4th row, and those are the rows that we're going to skip. So use whatever method you want. Maybe you're confident doing it without any markers, whatever works for you. But we will be doing every 3 out of 4 rows like we did for the rib trim. But because we're not just picking up stitches, there's a row to work. I just found for myself that it was getting a little tricky to remember where I was in the sequence. So let's begin. Our trim, I've cast on 9 stitches for the small size onto 2 double pointed needles. Again, if you find it easier to use your circulars, then go right ahead. I just found the double pointed needles to be kind of more simple for this little short trim that we're going to be going back and forth. So we start with the I-cord edge, so we're going to slip 3 stitches purlwise to the right needle with our yarn in back. And then for the small size, we're going to purl 5. So I've brought my yarn to the front and I'm going to purl 5. And that leaves us with 1 stitch. So we're going to attach this to the edge, and we are starting at the top of the ribbing, the armhole ribbing here. And we're going to knit 2 together through the back loop. So what I'm going to do is slip this stitch purlwise to the right needle, find my first top corner stitch. Where are you? There we go. Oh wait. So again, there we go. You want to go through 2 strands just like you did before. So what I did is knit through that stitch, and then I'm going to do a passover move. Okay, so we're attached now. And we're going to turn so the wrong side is facing and work our next row. So this is row 2, slip 1 purlwise with yarn in front, knit 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then purl 3. So that would be sort of the back or the inside of our I-cord. Okay, and I'll do 1 more row attaching to the side. So slip 3 purlwise with yarn in back. Now row 3, we will be knitting 5 to create our ribbing. 3, 4, 5, and then a knit 2 together through the back loop into the next stitch. So now that we're already attached, that's a little bit easier. But I do, again, I like this little passover move. Okay, so you can carry on with your ribbing. We've now done 3 rows. So I would remove this marker, skip that row, and carry on the next 3 rows. And then I would just place this marker further down in my sequence and carry on like that. Once you get down to the hem, you will work in every stitch along the bottom. Okay, so I know video tutorials are not my forte, but I hope this really helped, and I hope you enjoy your hauberk as much as I love mine. It's a great layering item, and just let me know if you have any questions at all about the pattern or any parts of this video. Thanks, everybody.